Imagine a society that looks, on the surface at least, almost exactly like the one we live in right now. I really want you to picture it. It is a modern, functioning democracy. It's not some post-apocalyptic wasteland. There are no burning buildings or zombies roaming the streets.
Yeah, it's actually quite the opposite.
Exactly. The streets are clean. The public transport actually runs on time. The coffee is excellent, like probably really good, ethically sourced, pour-over stuff we all like. And the furniture is that tasteful, minimalist Scandinavian design.
It sounds perfect, honestly, like the kind of place many of us aspire to live in. Safe, orderly, aesthetically pleasing.
It's very pleasant, but there is a catch. And it's not a hidden catch, like a secret government conspiracy that nobody knows about. It is right there in the law books.
Plain as day.
Right. It's a very specific, very legal catch that the majority of the population actually voted for. In this society, if you are a woman over the age of 50 or a man over the age of 60, and you are single, and you are childless,
Your status changes. And we aren't talking about a change in tax brackets here or losing a senior discount. We are talking about a fundamental shift in your human rights. You are legally classified as dispensable.
Dispensable. That word just carries so much weight. It's so clinical. It sounds like something you'd say about a paper cup or a razor blade.
Or battery.
Yeah, a battery. But in this world, it applies to human beings. And once you are stamped with that word, you are moved. You are taken out of your home and placed into a facility known as the unit, a place you can never leave. Because from that moment on, your body, your literal flesh and blood, belongs to the state.
It really is one of the most terrifying premises I have ever encountered in speculative fiction, largely because of how plausible it feels. It's not built on hate. It is built on logic. Cold, hard economic logic.
Welcome to our deep dive for today. We are stepping through the sliding glass doors of a novel that has absolutely haunted me for the last week. We are doing a deep dive into the book The Unit by Ninni Holmqvist.
This book is a masterpiece of quiet horror. It's often mentioned in the same breath as The Handmaid's Tale or Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go, and rightfully so.
Definitely.
But The Unit has a very distinct flavor. It's Swedish, and it carries that very specific Nordic atmosphere. It's melancholy, it's pragmatic, and it's calm. There is no violent revolution here. There are no soldiers kicking down doors. It is a story about bureaucracy, about being humane, and about the terrifying cost of being considered unproductive.
That word, humane, it just kept tripping me up as I was reading. The brutality in this book is so polite, it is wrapped in cotton wool. So our mission today is to peel back that cotton wool. We're going to explore the terrifying logic behind the unit.
We have to.
We're going to follow the journey of the protagonist, Dorrit Weger, from her life on the outside to her final days on the inside, all based on the novel's narrative, which is structured like her own personal diary account.
It's very intimate.
It is. And we're going to grapple with the question that Holmqvist is screaming at us from every page. What actually determines the value of a human life? Is it our ability to produce, money, children, labor, or is it something else, something that can't be measured on a spreadsheet?
It is the ultimate question of utility versus intrinsic worth. And we are going to dig into this by looking closely at Dorrit's narrative. Her diary from inside the 2nd Reserve Bank Unit for Biological Material.
Let's just pause on that name for a second. The 2nd Reserve Bank Unit for Biological Material?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like a prison.
No, it sounds like a storage facility.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what it is. To the state, these people are inventory. But let's start at the beginning. Admission. We meet Dorrit Weger. She is 50 years old. She is a writer. And the day she has been dreading has finally arrived.
It's a sunny day in early spring. And the way Holmqvist writes this scene, it's so understated, which actually makes it worse. Dorrit isn't being arrested. She isn't dragged out in handcuffs. She packs her own bag. She waits by the gate.
Right.
A wine-red SUV with tinted windows pulls up.
The banality of evil is on full display here. The driver isn't a guard. She's a friendly woman who nods and smiles. Dorrit gets in the back seat. And as they drive away, she isn't just leaving behind her house, which, to be fair, she admits was kind of falling apart.
Right. She couldn't afford to fix the roof or the drainage.
Yeah, she was struggling financially.
But she is leaving behind something much more important than the house. She's leaving behind her dog, Jock. And I really want to slow down here. We need to talk about the dog, because if you breeze past this part, you miss the heartbeat of the first 50 pages.
Absolutely. The separation from Jock is the first true emotional hammer blow of the narrative. And it's not just, oh, she misses her pet. Holmqvist writes about this separation as a physical trauma. Dorrit describes feeling the phantom pain of the dog before she has even fully left him.
That image of phantom pain really stuck with me. It's usually something you associate with a lost limb.
Exactly, and that is highly intentional. To Dorrit, Jock was a part of her. She describes the weight of his head on her thigh, the specific smell of his fur when it's damp, the sound of his claws on the floor. These aren't just fond memories, they are sensory anchors to the world.
There is a specific part I pulled because I think it sums up her entire worldview. She says, "Between Jock and me, there was no bridge. We lived completely separately because of the conditions imposed by our respective species, but we also lived side by side, body to body, without promises, lies, or small talk."
Without promises, lies, or small talk. That is the key to understanding why this loss destroys her. In the human world, the world she's leaving and the world of the unit she is entering, everything is transactional.
Everything.
Every interaction is about value, debt, social standing, or utility. But the relationship with the dog, it is pure presence. It is the only connection she has that isn't based on what she can produce or provide.
It's unconditional. And the state doesn't value unconditional things because you can't tax them, you can't use them to build bridges.
Precisely. In the eyes of the authorities, her relationship with Jock is frivolous. It's a waste of resources for a dispensable person to have a dependent animal. But to Dorrit, it was the only pure love she had left. When she hands over that leash to the stranger who comes to collect him, it's the moment she really loses her autonomy.
She mentions that the dog looks back at her, confused but trusting. That completely broke me. It's the ultimate betrayal of trust, forced upon her by a system that claims to be humane.
It signals the death of her emotional freedom. When she hands over that leash, she is effectively severing her last tie to the natural, chaotic, emotional world. From that moment on, she is just biological material.
So the SUV drives her away. They drive for hours, eventually going underground, and she arrives at the unit. Now, I want you to paint the picture for us. Because when I think facility for unwanted older people, I think of bad nursing homes. I think of the smell of bleach and boiled cabbage. I think of fluorescent lights flickering in hallways. But that is not the unit.
No, it is shockingly different. It is designed to be a paradise. It's a golden cage. The unit is described as having muted, tasteful colors. Everything is high-end Scandinavian design. Beechwood furniture, soft textiles. Her apartment, and it is an apartment, not a cell, has a kitchenette, a living room, and a separate bedroom.
She actually makes a specific point about the bed.
Mm-hmm.
It's a double bed. She mentioned she's never even had a double bed before in her life because she couldn't afford the space or the furniture.
Right. It represents a significant upgrade in material comfort for her. The fridge is stocked. The food is incredible. We're talking Italian 5-course meals, freshly baked bread every morning, panna cotta, good wine. There's a library, a state-of-the-art theater, a gym with personal trainers. It is a luxury resort.
It sounds nice. I mean, if you ignore the context for a second, it sounds like a really high-end retirement community.
That is exactly the trap. It is comfortable, but then you notice the surveillance. It is absolute and total. There are cameras in the ceiling corners of every room. There are cameras in the closets. There are cameras under the bed.
And under the sink, which is just wild to me.
And perhaps most invasively, 3 cameras in the bathroom. 2 on the ceiling and 1 under the wash basin, pointing up.
Okay, I have to ask, why? Why do they need to see you on the toilet? Why do they need that angle? It just feels like pure perversion.
They justify it as safety. That is the language of the unit. They tell the residents, we don't want you to slip and fall. We don't want you to faint. We need to be able to reach you instantly if you have a medical emergency.
Right.
But the subtext is much darker. Remember, you are valuable biological capital now. They need to protect the merchandise. If you commit suicide, which is a real risk given the situation, that is a waste of state resources. They're watching you to ensure you don't damage the goods.
That is the most chilling kind of safety I've ever heard of. It's not about your well-being. It's about asset protection. And then there's the issue of the windows, or the lack thereof.
That is the sensory deprivation aspect that slowly drives people mad. The unit is underground or enclosed. There are no windows looking out to the real world. The daylight inside the apartments comes from artificial diodes in the air vents that change intensity to mimic the sun. They have this massive central area called the winter garden, which is beautiful. It has trees, flowers, scents, but it's under a glass dome. It's a terrarium.
There's a scene where Dorrit realizes the birds in the garden are robotic, Or at least the sounds are artificial in some places.
Mhm.
It's a complete simulation of life.
It creates a deep sense of unreality. Psychologically, this is fascinating. If you put people in a damp dungeon with rats, they will rebel, they will fight the guards, they will dig tunnels.
Sure.
But if you put them in a luxury hotel, feed them 5-course meals, give them soft beds, and tell them they are finally safe and valued, it becomes much harder to fight back. The oppression is masked as care.
It reminds me of that line from the director Petra Runhide, which we'll get to later. She basically gaslights them into thinking this is the best thing that ever happened to them.
Exactly. It paralyzes the will to resist. You feel guilty for complaining because the sheets are so soft.
So we have the setting, a luxury prison. But let's zoom out and look at the why. This brings us to the definition of dispensable. Why is Dorrit here? What is the legal framework behind this?
The criteria are very strict. Childless, single, past reproductive age. For women, the cutoff is 50. For men, it's 60.
And everyone else, the people with jobs, families, children, they are the needed. They live outside. They have the freedom, the stress, the traffic jams, the real weather.
Correct. The society is bifurcated into these two groups, the needed and the dispensable.
And the function of the dispensable people inside the unit is strictly medical.
It is entirely medical. They are a biological reserve bank. Their purpose is to provide spare parts. Kidneys, corneas, skin grafts, bone marrow, and eventually vital organs like hearts and lungs for the needed people outside. They are also used for drug trials and psychological experiments.
Now, I want to play devil's advocate for a second here, because this is the part where the book really challenges you. This wasn't a dictatorship. This wasn't a military coup where a general took over and said, round up the older people.
No. And that is the critical aha moment of the book. This is a democracy. The text explains that this system started with a political party called the Capital Democrats.
And to be clear, we are just unpacking the ideology presented in the novel here. We aren't taking any real-world political sides. But that name, Capital Democrats, it sounds frighteningly realistic, like something you'd see on a ballot today.
It does. They campaigned on this idea, and the majority of the population voted for it. There was a referendum. And I can understand in a terrifying way why people might vote for it based on the logic presented.
Let's break that down. Say I'm a needed person in this world. I'm 35, I have 2 kids, working 2 jobs. I'm paying high taxes. I'm stressed out of my mind trying to keep the lights on and raise the next generation of citizens.
Exactly. You are exhausted. You look at the demographics. You see an aging population that is draining the pension funds and the healthcare system. And then you look at someone like Dorrit. She has no kids. She works freelance. She lives in a house she can't quite afford. From your stressed, overworked perspective, she looks like she's just floating.
She's enjoying the infrastructure I'm paying for, but she's not contributing to the future in a tangible way.
That is the argument the party makes. The Capital Democrats argued that citizenship isn't an inherent right. It's a contract. You owe the collective. If you haven't paid in biological capital, meaning children, or financial capital, you are in debt to society. You are in the red.
And the unit is how you pay it back.
Precisely. It's a utilitarian nightmare. It's the tyranny of the majority. The majority said, hey, we're stressed. Why should these single, childless people just float around enjoying life? They should support us. It turns human life into a balance sheet.
Dorrit reflects on her past life in this context quite a bit. She was a freelancer, she had casual relationships, she traveled, she prioritized her art and her experiences.
She lived for herself. She talks about how when she was growing up, the ideal was self-realization, finding yourself, being independent. But then the political winds changed. The pendulum swung. Suddenly, that independence was viewed as selfishness. Because she wasn't serving the collective, she was seen as a parasite.
It really challenges you to ask how we value people today. When you meet someone at a party, the first question is always, what do you do? We represent our value through our productivity. The unit just takes that to its logical, horrific conclusion.
It suggests that if you aren't productive in a measurable way, you are just raw material. But here is where the logic rots. It assumes that value is only what can be measured on a spreadsheet. It completely ignores art, mentorship, friendship, caretaking, things Dorrit provided her whole life, but which the state can't tax and can't quantify.
It's the tyranny of the metric. If you can't count it, it doesn't count.
And once you accept that premise, that a human is only worth their output, the unit isn't just possible, it becomes inevitable.
So let's go back inside the facility. Life inside. We know about the luxury. But what do they actually do all day?
They have a routine, they have access to the amenities, but they also have to work. But the work isn't typing or digging ditches, it's participating in experiments.
Humane experiments, they call them.
Right. Dorrit is assigned to an intense physical exercise study. She has to row on a machine for hours a day until she's utterly exhausted so they can measure her hormone levels and muscle deterioration.
Which sounds, I don't know, almost okay. I mean, free personal training doesn't sound like torture initially.
That's exactly how they get you. It sounds benign. But then you look at Alice, one of Dorrit's friends. She takes part in a hormone study where she takes male hormones. She starts growing a beard. Her voice deepens. She loses the essence of who she physically was. She becomes a hybrid creature just to provide data points for a pharmaceutical company.
And then there is the sugar pill scandal. This part really shook me because it shows how little their lives actually matter, even when the system claims to be careful. I want to dig into this because the details are horrific.
This involves a character named Eric. He's an animator, a gentle soul, very quiet. He signs up for an antidepressant study. It's a standard double-blind study. Group A gets the drug, Group B gets a placebo, a sugar pill.
And these studies are technically voluntary, right?
Technically. But the social pressure is overwhelming. Being cooperative buys you privileges and keeps the staff nice to you, so Eric signs up. But there's a manufacturing error at the pharmaceutical plant outside. The active pills are contaminated with a highly potent nerve poison.
A nerve poison
Yes.
in an antidepressant.
Yes. And because it's double-blind, the doctors inside the unit don't know who took what until people start collapsing. About 15 residents suffer massive, irreversible brain damage. They are essentially lobotomized within hours.
And this is where the utility logic kicks in again. A normal hospital would rush to save them. They would try to flush the system, put them on life support, do everything to preserve life.
Right. But the unit, they look at these 15 brain-dead bodies and they don't see patients, they see spoiling inventory. They realize the brains are gone, but the bodies are still fresh. So they rush them to the operating theater. Not to fix them, but to harvest their kidneys, livers, and hearts before the toxin spreads to the organs.
They process them like livestock that got sick. Quick, save the meat.
Exactly. But the real tragedy, the narrative tragedy here, is Eric. Eric didn't take the poison. He got the sugar pill. He was physically fine.
But he watched it happen.
He watched 15 of his friends and acquaintances be dragged away to be butchered. He watched his partner, Vanja, disappear. And the psychological trauma breaks him. He regresses. He stops speaking. He stops eating. He reverts to an infant-like state.
And what does the unit do with him? Do they get him a therapist? Do they try to help him recover?
No. They view him as damaged goods. He is no longer useful as a test subject because his mind is broken. So the administration just shrugs. They expedite his final donation. They kill him early because he's become a burden on the staff.
That is the industrialization of death. It's so cold. And speaking of death, let's talk about the terminology. They don't call it execution. They call it donations.
It's the language of charity. You are donating. It implies you have a choice. It starts small. You give a kidney. You recover. You live your life in the luxury apartment. Then maybe a cornea, you lose depth perception, you bump into things. Then a piece of intestine, you get weaker and weaker, you become a shell.
And then comes the final donation.
The euphemism for the end. You give everything, heart, lungs, liver, remaining cornea. They hollow you out until there is nothing left.
And the social dynamic around this is so strange to read about. Dorrit makes friends, Mashkin, Elsa, Alice. They know they're all going to die. How do they handle that on a day-to-day basis?
They handle it with dark humor and intense bonding. They don't have time for small talk. They become family very quickly. Mashkin is a fascinating character. She's a brash, loud artist.
She paints some really confronting stuff.
She does. She refuses to paint pretty landscapes. She paints a deformed fetus. She paints geriatric bodies with sagging skin. She refuses to look away from the grotesque reality of the body. She is the first of Dorrit's circle to make the final donation.
And the way the director, Petra Runhide, handles it. She's terrifyingly nice. I would talk about Petra. Because she isn't a villain with a mustache. She's a mother figure.
Petra Runhide is the ultimate bureaucrat of death. She gives these speeches where she tells the residents, out there, you were invisible. People look down on you. But here, you belong, you have each other, we appreciate you.
And the scary part is she's kind of right. Dorrit admits that she was lonely outside. She admits that she felt marginalized.
That's the psychological trap. The unit preys on the loneliness of the modern world. It offers community in exchange for your life. It says, we will love you, we will feed you, we will give you friends, and all you have to do is die for us.
It's incredibly seductive. If you are lonely and broke, maybe it doesn't sound so bad at first. Which brings us to the biggest complication of all. Love. Dorrit meets Johannes.
Johannes. A fellow writer, He's been there longer than she has. He's charming, he's kind, he's intelligent.
And this relationship is so different from her relationship outside with Nils.
Completely. Nils was a needed man. He had a wife and kids. Dorrit was his mistress, his secret. He loved her, or almost loved her, but he wouldn't leave his life for her. He benefited from her affection but gave her no status. He consumed her love without paying for it, in a way.
But with Johan in the unit, they are equals. They are both dispensable.
Exactly. There is no power imbalance.
But-
They can walk holding hands in the winter garden. They can be a public couple. And the intimacy they share is accelerated by the proximity of death. They are living for the capital, as Dorrit puts it, living in the moment because there is no future.
There is a beautiful moment where Johannes finds a stone, a pink fossil stone.
Yes, he gives it to her. Think about the symbolism there. A fossil is something that has lasted for millions of years. It is permanent. It has endured pressure and time. He gives this symbol of deep time to a woman in a place where time is literally running out. It anchors their love in something eternal, even if their bodies are temporary.
It's heartbreaking. They are so happy together. They are having this late-in-life romance, dancing at the parties, sleeping together in the single bed, even though they have doubles. They create an entire world within the world.
And then the miracle happens, or the disaster, depending on how you look at it. The twist.
Dorrit gets pregnant.
At 50 years old, it's highly unlikely, biologically speaking, but not impossible. She takes a test, and it's positive.
And this changes the rules of the game completely.
It does, because remember the criteria for being needed, it is based on production, specifically the production of new citizens. A pregnant woman is, by definition, a production center. She is no longer dispensable.
So she is ecstatic. She thinks, I'm saved. Johannes is saved. We are going to be parents. We're going to get out of here.
She rushes to the clinic. She has a meeting with Director Petra and the doctor. She is bursting with this news. She thinks she is playing a trump card that will win them their freedom.
And then they completely pull the rug out from under her. And not just pulled,
Yeah.
incinerated.
It is the most brutal scene in the book. She tells them she's pregnant. She expects congratulations. But Petra looks uncomfortable. She looks at the doctor, and then the doctor just blurts it out. Johanna was taken for his final donation this afternoon.
While Dorrit was sitting there, while she was waiting to tell him.
Yes, his liver was needed urgently for a carpenter with 3 children. The utility calculation was made. 1 carpenter is worth more than 1 aging writer.
Dorrit just loses it. She runs. She physically runs through the corridors of the unit.
This is a woman who has been compliant, who has followed the rules. But now she breaks. She runs down the spiral staircases, past the pool, into the surgical wing. She is desperate. She thinks if she can just get there, she can stop it. She can scream, I'm pregnant, he's the father, stop.
But she's too late.
She arrives and he's gone. His body is there, but he is already being processed. The description is clinical and horrific. They are harvesting him. The man she loved, the father of her child, is now just a collection of parts being distributed to the needed.
And in this moment of absolute despair, something strange happens. A nurse, not one of the main ones, just the guy with a birthmark on his face, sees her. He sees her grief.
He breaks protocol. He sees her humanity, not her status. And he slips her a key card.
A key card to the exit door.
A literal get-out-of-jail-free card. He tells her, essentially, you've lost everything. You shouldn't be here. Go.
So now she has a choice. She is pregnant. She has a key card. She's officially protected for now because of the pregnancy. So Director Petra moves her into a luxury isolation suite to keep the baby safe.
Great.
But Dorrit knows she can leave. She can walk out the door.
And this leads us to the ultimate choice. This is the part of the book that makes people want to throw it across the room.
I almost did. Because she has the card. You're reading it screaming, go, run, save yourself.
The director offers her a deal first. She says, carry the baby to term, give it up for adoption to a needed family. You can stay here, safe, until the birth. Then back to being dispensable.
So the baby buys her time, but not freedom. But the key card buys her freedom.
Dorrit contemplates escape. She spends nights thinking about it. She visualizes the outside world. And this is where we have to understand her mindset. What does freedom look like to Dorrit at this point?
It's midwinter. It's freezing outside.
Right. She has no money. Her accounts were closed when she entered. Her house is likely sold or rotting. She is 51 years old. She is heavily pregnant. She is a fugitive.
She realizes that if she runs, she will be shivering in the bus station, trying to hide a crying baby hunted by the police. She would be a pariah.
She realizes that the freedom outside is cold and hostile. The society out there hates her, but inside she has Elsa.
Elsa is her best friend, and Elsa's dying.
Elsa has been harvested significantly. She is frail, she is bedridden. If Dorrit leaves, she leaves Elsa to die alone.
So she stays. She puts the key card away. She does not use it.
She stays. She chooses a warm death over a cold survival.
Why? I mean, I understand the logic, but it feels so defeatist.
It is defeatist, but it's also an act of defiance in a strange way. It is a giant middle finger to the needed society. She decides that she would rather die among her own kind, the dispensable, the broken, the artists, the sensitive ones, than struggle to survive in a world that only values her for her utility.
It's an act of solidarity. She stays with the victims because she identifies with them more than she identifies with the survivors.
Exactly. And then there is the baby.
That scene. She gives birth to a daughter.
There is a heartbreaking moment where she holds the baby. She sees Johannes in the baby's face. She feels that overwhelming motherly love.
And then she hands her over.
She gives the baby to a recruitment director, a needed woman, a woman who fits the mold. Dorrit realizes that if she takes the baby on the run, the child will grow up poor, marginalized, and outcast. By giving her up, she buys the child a ticket into the needed class.
She sacrifices her motherhood to ensure her daughter won't be dispensable. It's the ultimate act of self-sacrifice.
It is. And once the baby is gone, Dorrit's protection status expires. She's moved back to the regular unit.
And then?
And then she finishes her novel. The book we are reading is the manuscript she writes in those final days.
That adds a whole layer of meta-sadness to it. We are reading her suicide note, essentially. We are reading her testament.
She finishes the book. She prepares for her final donation. She knows her heart and lungs are going to a local politician, a mother of two.
And she accepts it.
She feels a strange peace. She says she has paid her debt. She dies on her own terms, surrounded by the only community that truly accepted her. She is holding Elsa's hand.
It is such a heavy ending. It doesn't give you the Hollywood breakout and burn it down satisfaction.
No, and that's why it's powerful. If she had burned it down, it would be an action movie, it would be a fantasy. By staying, it becomes a tragedy about how society breaks people. It forces us to look at the unit not as a villainous fortress, but as a symptom of a sick society.
It makes you look at the real world differently.
It does. It forces the question, are we moving toward this? Maybe not with organ harvesting camps, but with the way we value life. Do we look at the elderly and think burden? Do we look at the childless and think selfish?
Do we look at utility as the only metric for a life's worth?
That is the core question. The unit suggests that if we go down that road, if we let utility become our god, we lose our humanity long before we enter the facility.
It's so much to process. But before we wrap up, there's one final thought I want to leave you with, something that builds on all this. Think about how the system isolated Dorrit long before she ever got in that wine-red SUV. The real prison wasn't the unit. The real prison was a culture that convinced her she had nothing left to offer just because she didn't fit a specific mold. If we aren't careful, we build these invisible units in our own communities every single day by ignoring the people who don't fit into our neat little boxes of productivity.
That is spot on. It is a book that stays with you. It sits right in your gut.
It certainly does. The Unit by Ninni Holmqvist. If you haven't read it, go pick it up. It is beautifully written, even if it destroys you. Just maybe have a box of tissues ready. And maybe call your mom. Or your grandma.
And hug your dog.
Definitely hug your dog. A little tighter tonight. That's all for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.